Hey there, Chaplain Dalton.
Hey, Chaplain Spencer.
We are here with the first of Chaplains in Cars Getting Coffee. We just thought that we would take this time to maybe provide a little bit of relief in what has become an unprecedented time, and to share a little bit about the Ministry of Hope and what it feels and sounds like in the prison. So Chaplain Dalton, tell us a little bit about the Ministry of Hope.
Well, the Ministry of Hope is a chaplaincy program that's supported by the community out here. It's predominantly, for the past 20 years, it's been the Swannanoa Valley that has really been the central support for providing chaplains for women in prison in Western North Carolina. We've seen in the past 18 months of those 20 years, we've seen that support begin to come from several churches in the Asheville area and beyond, but predominantly people who live right around us.
And how long have you been doing this ministry?
I started in 2007. I came to do a one-year interim when Lynn Mitchie went on took a year to be with her husband, David, who, try not to wreck here, who was over at Swanee in Tennessee, and I was just going to be here for a year, and that was 13 years ago.
Big shout out to Lynn Mitchie, who we all love.
Hey, Lynn Mitchie!
What has been the biggest change in over a decade of prison ministry out here in Swannanoa?
Okay, so we can't count the past 2 weeks, but before that, the biggest change was just the growth in the numbers of women that we minister to. When I started, we had 80 beds. The faces in those beds didn't change every day. People would go home, but it wasn't a constant. We moved to what had previously been the Swannanoa Valley Youth Development Center, and started renovating buildings. We came over here with 80 women, pretty quickly went up to 96 women, and a year later I think we had something like 135. Anyway, today we have 366 beds. But even with that, the big change is how quickly those faces change, because it's pretty standard for us to release over 500 women every year. So you have 366 beds, but you're sending over 500 women home every year. That means you've got a lot of turnover.
And a very important question, with this being Chaplains in Cars with Coffee, where's your coffee?
I had so much already.
No coffee.
I decided I shouldn't.
The inquiring minds wanted to know.
I did have plenty already this morning, but we might stop and get a beverage.
You did reference these past 2 weeks. What has this pandemic done to Swannanoa Correctional Center for Women, or how has it impacted the women and the staff and even ministry out there?
So just like everybody else, there's a lot of anxiety. There are some good things that have happened. The state's allowing women, well, the phone system, the company that allows the phone calls, they're allowing 2 5-minute free phone calls every week. So even people who hadn't had contact with their family, they're able to check in with their family and see how they're doing. So that's been one of the really positive things. But the other side of that is we don't have any volunteers coming in for obvious reasons. So a lot of programs that have been happening are not happening. School, AB Tech's not there, Warren Wilson's not there, even though those women are working diligently on their papers to get them in. But not having the interaction with the other students, feeling really isolated and afraid, I think is a big part of it. For me, the hardest thing you know, remember back in December when they told us we couldn't hug?
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of like, what?
Wait a minute, you can't hug out there?
Well, we probably never were supposed to, but then it became a whole thing where we had to sign that we wouldn't hug, and then it, you know, then we kind of were feeling a little rebellious, but decided, okay, we better get with the program and understand all this. But now it's to this point of we're supposed to be doing the social distancing and staying 6 feet apart, and we are not just supposed to, but we're really working at practicing that, even though it can be so difficult.
Give us an example of what that looks like.
Well, I found myself, I think it was on Monday, I had a woman who came in. She had been here 2 weeks. She had come in through reception, had been told on reception that her mom had died, but because of all the movement and changing from one facility to another, she finally gets up with a chaplain, that being me. She had written me a note, asked could she see me because she was grieving the death of her mother. So I call her over to the chapel, and she's sitting on the front pew, and I'm about 6 feet away in my little chair, which is so different from how we've always done it in the office. But what I found out was her main thing was, could I just have a copy of my mom's obituary? And I said, well, tell me your mom's name and if you know the funeral home. Well, she knew all of that, and I went up and I took a little bit of sleuthing, but I was actually able to find that obituary and print it out. It had a beautiful picture of her mom on it. I hand it to her and go back and sit in my chair and watch her from 6 feet away as she's just weeping and has not had any opportunity to process this grief. That was so hard to not walk over there and just even put my hand on her shoulder.
So prison ministry, especially during these times, sounds like is quite unique, and you have to be pretty innovative and creative with ways to be the presence of love and grace and peace during this time.
It is, and you know, one of the things I'm doing, I'm going around and trying to check in with at least 1 or 2 staff members every morning, and if they're willing, sit and have a conversation with them and ask them what they're doing to take care of themselves, and just trying to keep those good vibes going and people on a more positive note, but also let them know, just like we do with the women, give them a space to say, if you're scared, you can tell me right here and right now. So I'm not going to tell you any of those stories because that would be wrong, but just know that's happening, and people are opening up in ways that they probably never would have before.
Well, we should end on that positive note in the ways that we see the silver lining and God's presence in the midst of chaos and strife and virus. Any final words until next week with Chaplains in Cars with Coffee?
Okay, so next week we need to do this early in the morning so we can actually go and buy some coffee, and people can see that we do enjoy having our coffee. Hoping that, you know, things aren't so shut down that by next week we can't do that. Knowing that we are coming at this, that every day's a new day and things can change in a heartbeat, and we're ready to roll with those punches. You know what? Just being very realistic, by this time next week, that woman that's 6 feet away, I may be having to talk to her on the phone. It may be that it would be too dangerous for me to walk into the facility just for fear of taking something in that I don't have to. We're trying to limit as much contact as we can now. That can change really quickly. So we'll keep everybody updated on how they can help us out. But really grateful for technology. All my preacher friends are trying to figure out new and different ways to do ministry. We're right there with you.
And we want to say thank you to the Ministry of Hope and for community support for letting us be out here during this time, because it's definitely an essential ministry, and each day it is needed, and even more so in these times when we're all trying to figure things out together, but from 6 feet away.
One more thing.
One more thing.
I put up the little notes up on the walls today of the notes that some of our supporters and volunteers had sent in to the women, just notes of hope and in connection, and they are so grateful for that. So y'all keep sending them in.
Amen. Please check us out on Facebook and on the Ministry of Hope WNC website for more information. We do hope to continue posting those so we can stay in contact and kind of be a liaison between a extremely isolated community and those of us who are isolating at home. We want to take any questions that you might have, and hopefully next week we'll be able to address those and answer them, because we all were created to live in community, and even though we are having to do it creatively during these times, we are stronger together, and there's nothing stronger than love, not even a virus.